skinny, curd, not yummies, with almond milk, whipped cream.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta cut back somewhere. Get the almond milk.
Okay, we're back. Ready? Let's begin. So let's start with a meditation. And since the subject for today's meditation, successful meditation is for everyone. And so let's try a simple meditation technique instead of doing a guided meditation. I'm going to just guide you through a few deep breaths, and then I invite you to practice a meditation technique. So how the meditation technique works, very simple. You just grab one word, choose whatever you want, but I would recommend something as simple as the word Om, or some people prefer something that means something, but I would say that better something that doesn't mean anything, right? Like, or doesn't mean anything, at least for you in your Western mind. So you can use the word Om or any Sanskrit word that you know. Om will do it, and then you begin to repeat this word mechanically. That means no feeling, right? It's mechanic. You don't need to have any expectation. You don't need to expect that something is going to happen. You just need to repeat the word and see what happens, right? So the idea is to do it as an experiment, not looking for a particular result, because if we are looking for a particular result, we are in fact having expectations. And expectations are a killer for meditation. So the best way to approach meditation is as an experiment. And you set the rules for what you are going to do, and then you say, okay, let me try this and see what happens. So I would suggest that you try this. Just repeat a word, like the word Om, and see what happens. In the meantime, you may notice, of course, that the mind will tend to have different thoughts and perhaps even feelings. The attitude towards this material is extremely important, because if you enter in conflict with it, the meditation is over. So you basically allow everything to be as it is, right? And just continue your mantra. So this is a form of mantra meditation. You just continue repeating the word Om, and if the mind wanders, you just keep repeating the word Om. If the mind, if there are some feelings, you just keep repeating the word Om. Don't worry about it, right? Whatever material comes up is not important. So don't fight it. Don't try to put it aside. Don't try to concentrate the mind. Just keep repeating Om. That's it, right? So it's a goalless meditation, and we are only looking into, let's see what happens. Let's see what's going to happen with the experiment. Or you could say, if you see it from a devotional perspective, you could say, let's see what the divine will give us as a result of this very simple effort. Almost stupid effort, right? Repeating mechanically a word. But it's the effort to sit, right? So usually this meditation is recommended for 20 minutes, right? So we will go for 20 minutes. And at the end, I will invite you to share what was that you experienced. And whatever you experienced is perfectly fine, because it's an experiment. You're not looking for a particular experience, right? Or quieting the mind, or no. Let's see what happens. All right. Let's begin. Let's start with 3 deep breaths. Just inhale through the nostrils deeply and exhale, relaxing the whole body from head to toe. And inhale again and exhale, relaxing. And once more, inhale deeply and exhale, relaxing. Allow your whole body to relax. Now just begin to repeat the word Om or whatever. And just continue repeating it. While allowing everything else to be as it is. So now you can gently open your eyes and also notice if there was any shift, change, or difference in your mental state and emotional state from the beginning of your practice until to the end, right? And let's share. I invite those online also to share their experience if you notice any difference after those 20 minutes.
Can't say that I didn't notice any difference.
Sorry?
I didn't notice any difference.
You didn't notice any difference?
No.
Okay, thank you, Sandy.
Yeah.
So Sandy didn't notice any difference.
I struggle quite a bit. I forgot that I can't meditate with my legs up because I get restless legs, so I have to get
Right.
hard for me.
Right.
I used to meditate twice a day for 20 minutes, and this just seemed interminable to me. I thought I did go, and I come up, and I go, and I come up.
It felt like what?
Interminable.
Interminable, 20 minutes, yes.
It seemed like 4 days.
Like a torture?
Yeah, and I you know what it is lately. I'm not able to meditate as well.
Right.
And I learned, don't judge your meditation. All meditation is good. Doesn't matter.
Right. Okay, so Gina is saying that she learned to do not judge meditation. All meditation is good as it is, but she was struggling, and her meditations were restless, or what?
I'm sorry?
Your meditations were restless?
Yeah, when I
Restless,
meditate,
right?
when I'm not grounded, when my legs are up, I get restless legs. So I kept
Right, and she gets
jerking
restless
me out.
legs and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was not an enjoyable experience. Neither today, right? Today was not enjoyable either.
Right.
Okay.
But, I'm glad I did it.
She's glad she did it, but it was not particularly enjoyable. Okay, next one. How was your experience?
Oh, good. Tried it with the Om, but sometimes the TM mantra keeps coming back, so
Ah,
just don't worry about it, just
Yeah.
whichever one comes and goes.
one and or the other, right?
Lately, I just try to be aware of my awareness expanding in front and back and try and, breathe into that.
Right.
Not even worry about a mantra.
So the question is, through the mantra, did you experience that eventually that the awareness began to expand and the mind was more quiet? Yes. So here is a gentleman that obviously worked for him because he kept repeating the mantra. And how long it took until you eventually began to feel the expanded awareness?
Just a few minutes.
Just a few minutes. So how long did you practice transcendental meditation in your case?
Since I was 17, maybe.
Yeah, he practiced that since he was 17. Right.
35 years.
So you practiced it for how long?
Maybe 35 years.
35 years. And you began to get results at what point?
From that,
Yeah, from your practice?
it's off and on. It was frustrating because,
Yeah.
they're kind of, was it easy? Was it effortless? And I'm going,
Right.
emotions come up and I'm going, mantra.
Okay.
Get over it. But,
So there were good times and bad times during all those years.
Yeah, like
Okay.
anything else.
Right.
I like what you said last time we were here about having a half smile.
Yes.
So that kind of helps.
That helps, yes.
Take the edges off,
Exactly.
struggling.
Do not take it seriously.
Yeah, that was really good.
Okay, anyone else? Monica?
For me, it was calm.
It was calming?
And I guess at least a couple times I felt like my head kind of going back, like I was falling asleep, but I wasn't. But I was just so conscious of that.
So you were not falling asleep? No. Okay, so you felt a sense of calmness towards the end?
Well,
Throughout? Yes. Okay, good. Thank you.
It was good, but then I fell asleep.
Oh, Diane is saying that it was good for her until she fell asleep, which is very common, right? That also can happen, and it's fine. Just probably you need a little bit more sleep, and then you won't fall asleep. All right, so anyone online that would like to share, you can use the chat room and share your experience there with this 20 minutes repeating a mantra mechanically, right? No expectations, no goals, no expecting a particular result. Just looking into, let's see what happens, right? Okay, well, it looks like nobody is going to mention anything through the chat room, so let's continue. All right. What we have seen today, that the majority didn't get much results, is normal. In meditation, is normal, right? So, what we can do to increase our chances? A few ideas. The first one is make sure you are having the right attitude at the beginning, that it is just an experiment and you are not aiming at a particular goal. Because if you have a goal, an expectation is going to keep you emotionally entangled, and then you will not relax and nothing will happen. That's one thing. The other thing is keep in mind that the meditation technique that will work for you is very unique for each person. And therefore, don't allow anything to box you into a particular type of meditation for years and years without results, right? So you need to look for a particular technique that will work and will do the trick for you. And there are hundreds of techniques, so don't get stuck in, I have to practice this one because the guru said, right? No. You can try for a while the advice of the guru, but hey, don't get stuck there for years, because that may not be the meditation for you, right? And then you will feel resentful. So each mind-body organism has unique characteristics and will likely be more receptive to some forms of meditation than others. The third thing I would mention is have an understanding of what meditation is about. Really, very few people understand what meditation is about, even 30 years after meditating. And they don't understand what meditation is about. Many times they will say it's about quieting the mind. And it's not about quieting the mind. It's quieting the mind, obviously, will lead there. But the real goal of meditation, if there is a goal, right? But it's a goalless goal, is to shift the attention from mind to consciousness. That's what meditation is about. The attention has to shift from mind to consciousness. So by repeating a mantra, for example, or watching the breath, or doing other tricks, because meditation techniques are kind of tricks, right? The mind quiets down and this shift happens. And what meditation is really this resting as consciousness, resting as awareness. Why this is important to have it, to keep it in mind, is because sometimes meditation, having this shift, it's happening all the time to you through the day. You're entering into meditation many times during the day, and it's important to recognize those moments. And this leads to the very simple fact that sitting meditation is not the only option. You can meditate while you are doing different activities. And to understand this, we need to heal the split. What does it mean to heal the split? Is to heal, to debunk, and to let go of the idea that meditation is black and white. Is either I am in consciousness, the attention is completely resting as consciousness, or the attention is completely locked in the movie of the mind. There are endless levels in between. So when we understand that it's not black and white, that heals the split. The split usually happens as a result of the way meditation is explained by most teachers, because the language around spirituality tends to be hyperbolic, tends to be black and white. But when you embrace this hyperbolic language, then you generate a problem in the mind. Because then you will be looking for only the extremes. You will be looking for perfect resting as awareness. And then you will discard, or you will not notice that there are in between many options, countless in fact, that can be very healing and delightful and peaceful. Because even if a part of the attention is resting as awareness, as open awareness, and the other part is perhaps involved in a conversation, perhaps involved in driving, perhaps involved in working, perhaps involved in seeing and watching a movie, perhaps involved in walking and looking at the panorama around. But if a part of the attention, just a part, even a small part of the attention is resting as consciousness, then the stream of what is called divine feelings, compassion, love, joy, bliss, begins to flow into the mind, body, organism, and you feel happy. So it's not necessary to be completely, to obliterate the mind completely. Even if you do it partially, you can function throughout the day in a sort of meditative, happy, joyful state, which is very healing for the body, by the way, and for the mind. And in a way, it's more important, the average of our day, of our everyday experience, is more important than our peak experiences. So when you're looking for peak experiences, by sitting down in meditation, but you neglect what happens in between one meditation and the other, you're missing the point, because meditation is something that is supposed to influence your moment-to-moment life experience. So I happened to live for some time with an individual that he is good at meditating. So he was going to meditate in the morning, and he was coming out of the meditation feeling very peaceful. Was a friend, and eventually, after a few minutes, he was totally in the mind and was completely stressed out and had completely lost his peace. So it was quite extraordinary to see the contrast between coming out of meditation feeling peaceful, even blissful, and in a few minutes turning into full of stress, completely stressed out. And I was not the only person living in that house. There was another individual that noticed the same, noticed this dichotomy, right? So meditation had become limited only to the time that he was sitting. And this individual was a 35 years meditator. He was successful at meditating, possibly a yogi for incarnations, right? But in between one meditation and the next, there was no meditation.
No continuity.
No continuity, right? And meditation is something that needs to happen 24/7. This is what we need to understand, that meditation is when at least part of your attention is resting as consciousness, and then it's going on 24/7. That's the ideal thing we are looking for eventually. Yes, and for that, strangely, you may not need to sit to meditate. Even a walk to the park may trigger the state, and then it will continue with you throughout the day. Yes, Diane?
So he wasn't successful.
So Diane is saying he wasn't successful. Well, I would say that there was some success, but it was very limited. It was not influencing his life. Probably if he was not having these two moments during the day that he was meditating, his life would have been much worse, right? So there was some success, undeniably, but no, it's not what we're looking for. We want meditation to be part of our everyday life, and this is why many non-dual teachers in the Advaita tradition, they don't recommend to sit in meditation, right? Which I don't think is not something that I recommend. You can. I would say that it is okay to sit and meditate in the morning, and if you want to do it at night, fine. But I would also recommend to do not obsess with it, right? And is it helpful? Yes, it can be helpful for a lot of people because it gives you a push, right? But if you don't use the push to continue throughout the day, then it's practically wasted time. And you can also attain that, as I said, by walking meditation. And walking meditation, in a way, is much simpler. And walking meditation has less of a risk that you will misuse it as a medication for just the moment while you are drinking it, right? So it's very likely that if you are walking and you enter into spaciousness and part of your attention is resting as awareness, and you come back to your home or you go to your office, back to your office, there's a greater likelihood that you will continue meditating, because there's not so much contrast between doing nothing and sitting and then beginning to really get involved with your work or whatever you need to do during the day, because it's a fact of life that we all need to do things. So walking meditation has that advantage. Now, when you look at walking meditation, you will see that there are many traditions inside, especially the Buddhists have worked a lot with walking meditation, and they have many different techniques. What I want to say about this is here is where I'm definitely not in favor of any technique. It's just the walking meditation is as simple as walking and doing it in open awareness while resting at open awareness. So it's very, very simple. Now, if you are having difficulties to rest as open awareness while walking because your mind is too restless, right? I have a recommendation to make that can be really helpful, and is don't try to do it. Just stop and begin to say yes to what is. And saying yes to what is, it means yes to whatever you are seeing, yes to whatever you are listening, hearing, yes to whatever the body is feeling, yes to whatever is in the mind, yes to whatever restless thought, obsessive thought, yes, 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 yes to everything. What happens with that is that you decrease the resistance to what is through just repeating the word yes and attaching it to whatever is being perceived, and then what happens is that your mind will begin to quiet down. And even if you never enter into open focus awareness, just decreasing the resistance to what is will make you feel good and will make you feel happy, and you will get benefits, right? Physical and mental. So, however, I would not be surprised that if you keep decreasing resistance to what is, including what is happening in the mind, suddenly you will notice that the mind is quiet enough, and now you can go into open awareness, and it's not difficult, right? So avoid fighting. By all means, avoid fighting with the mind. Side with the mind. Side with it. Say yes to what the mind, to the acting out of the mind. It's like a child that is acting out, right, and is having a temper tantrum, and if you just watch it, ignore it, saying yes internally, and the child will eventually come out by himself or herself out of the temper tantrum. If you try to subdue the child and control it, you may get bad results. Okay.
I had an
Questions?
Oh, yeah. Comment.
Yes.
I had an experience today, not necessarily in relation to meditation per se, but to a shift in attitude that comes about with doing this kind of stuff.
Yes.
I had an appointment with someone and she was late, and as per usual, I began to stress about it and grouse about it in my head and fidget, and is she going to make it at all and all this, and I just stopped and I go, what are we doing? What is to be gained by this, and how often I do this when they, engage in a fight with the mind or with what is. How
With
I
what
do
is.
that, and how much stress it causes in my life for nothing.
For nothing, right?
I just sat around and I did.
Right. So Gina is sharing an interesting experience she had today. Somebody was coming to meet with her, but was late, so she began to have all these thoughts about, will this person come? Will she make it? And she was stressing out about that. And then suddenly she had the realization, why am I resisting what is? Because she may come or may not, but it's not up to you. And then when she dropped the resistance to what is, she felt immediately better. Yeah. So remember that when it comes to accepting, we can accept two things. We can accept an external situation, like, for example, the person you are meeting with is not coming doesn't show up. That's an external situation, right? Or we can embrace or say yes to our internal reaction to the experience. Or we can say yes to both, right? So in meditation, what I recommend is you say yes to both, external and internal. And then in your case, you used the external, right? You stopped resisting the fact that she may not come, right? And it worked. So it moved you into acceptance. It moved you away from resistance.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't work because the internal reaction of the mind-body organism is so strong that then it keeps resisting the external situation, and then it's more effective to turn the acceptance to ourselves and to accept the way the mind-body organism is reacting and what is going on outside. And then you get better results. But in your case, it worked by accepting the external situation. If you're in a traffic jam, same thing, right? You can accept that you're in a traffic jam. What? This is Los Angeles, and it is what it is. You psychologize yourself into acceptance, and in a way, the mind-body organism surrenders its complaints. And then resistance decreases, and peace is there. Yes, Dan.
The other morning I lost my keys to my car and looked in my car, looked outside, looked all over the house. I emptied my purse twice, maybe 3 times, looked through my purse, couldn't find my keys anywhere.
Right.
So then I just surrendered. And about half an hour later, maybe an hour later, I picked up my purse and I thought, I'm going to look one more time. And I took everything out, and there in one of the pockets, deep down at the bottom of the pocket, were my keys.
Your keys were there, right? So yeah, Diana is sharing something that probably many of you have already experienced. That when you accept, when you surrender to a situation that is making you feel upset, and you surrender and your peace comes back to you, then the situation tends to solve by itself, right? So she had lost her keys, was upset for a while, she surrendered, and half an hour later she had a thought to check in a particular place, and boom, the keys were there. So yeah, this has also a positive effect. Non-resistance has also a positive effect in our in attaining our goals. So resistance is futile.
Jim, what is the purpose of Advaita?
The purpose of Advaita? So Diane is asking for the purpose of Advaita. And the purpose of Advaita is twofold. One is to wake up, and the other one is to attain liberation. So waking up means to realize that you are consciousness, that you are not Diane, that you are a pure awareness, that you're not the body nor the mind, nor the character that you have been playing in life, that you are pure awareness. That's awakening. And then comes a time after that that you begin to work in the mind-body organism to clear it from programming, distorted programming from family, from society, cultural, traumas, and then you clean the mind-body organism until your mind-body organism is so free that you are beyond suffering. There's no more suffering. There's just liberation. It's called liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from suffering. Or we could say peace of mind under all circumstances. Or we could say bliss under all circumstances. Or contentment under all circumstances.
Okay, that's what I thought. But how do they, how do they have an individual realize their consciousness without meditating?
So Diane is saying how an individual will realize that he or she is consciousness without meditating, right? Well, it's not possible. But the thing is this. In order to realize that you are consciousness and that you are not the body or the mind, you need to meditate for possibly about 10 seconds. So it's so little. It's just enough to see something. So, for example, during the awakening protocol, you are presented with an exercise that will make you enter into meditation, right? Just enough to see something. What you will see, that you are pure awareness. The problem with meditation is that you can meditate deep and become a good meditator and meditate deep for decades and never wake up. So you need a coach, you need a teacher usually that will help you and point you into looking exactly what you need to look into so that the awakening happens. Sometimes the awakening happens spontaneously, right? It's like a blessing. You get it. And many people get an awakening in that way. Some people get an awakening sitting down in meditation, but many don't. Many were just walking on the streets, or they were very upset about something, and bang, they got the awakening, right? Or they had a simple prayer that was very humble and very nice or very appropriate, and boom, they got what they are really. So it's very personal, it's... But there is I always insist that there is a scientific way to wake up, which is by looking into our own experience, into our human experience. So that's the path of Advaita, is a looking into the human experience, not searching for a spiritual experience, but looking into the human experience. What is in here? What is happening here in this mind-body organism? What is present? As if you were a scientist and you want to discover what is present in the mind-body organism or in the human experience, and then you begin to write down what you see, what you observe as a scientist. What you will observe? Well, there are thoughts, obviously. There are emotions, sure. There are beliefs. There are desires or drives. And there are sensations. There are 5 elements that are constantly dancing, changing. And this can be called the perceived, right? Because they are perceived, elements that are being perceived. And if you just look carefully, you will see that there is also perceiving. of these elements. Undeniably, right? Impossible to deny that there is perceiving of the elements, otherwise how could you conclude that they are there? And then you keep looking and you don't find anything else. The human experience is limited. It has these 5 mental objects, and there is the perceiving of the 5 mental objects, and there is nothing else. And that leads to a very simple conclusion. Then where is me? Or question, where is me? In this experience here, in this human experience, where is me? Because there is awareness, which feels very impersonal. There is perceiving, the same, it's like a verb. But if I look for the perceiver, I cannot find it. So the obvious conclusion is that the perceiver, which is supposed to be me, doesn't exist. It's just perceiving or awarenessing of these 5 mental objects dancing. So that's the path of Advaita, is through looking carefully into the human experience. And it's cool because you don't need to be a great meditator to wake up. You just need to be objective. And you can be guided with the help of a teacher or a coach. You can be guided into this looking, into this careful looking. And that is what I do in the Awakening Protocol, that if you go to the website brainoptimization.com, you will find a tab that leads to this program. It's a 3-hour session, and it's based on this principle, looking carefully. And just to tell you how effective it is, not that long ago, a lady that was in close to Scotland, a doctor, and you will see her testimonial there, she saw it very clearly. Oh, there is no me. And she has been in this amazing state since then. Yeah, it's like sometimes happens like a blessing that comes with awakening, that the person stays, in this blissful state for a long time. Yeah, and sometimes for the rest of their lives. So it was so amazingly simple, so trivial. It was a moment. Oh yes. There's no perceiver. There's just the perceiving of this moment. It's impersonal. And the me and the I is a mental mass. The me and the feelings associated with me and my story is thoughts and feelings. And they are part of the perceived. They are thoughts and feelings. They are not the perceiver as people imagine when they use the word I am perceiving, and they are inventing. They are inventing an I that is perceiving, a perceiver. It's fantasy, it's imagination. It's the language that is crooked. The language is organized as subject, verb, object. Then you have to create a subject there. But it's false. There is not such a subject. No, in nature. In nature it doesn't exist. In the language it exists. At this moment, if you notice, there is just perceiving of this moment through the 5 senses. There's perceiving of the thoughts. You could write them. There's perceiving of your emotional state if you put attention. There's perceiving of any drive or need, like going to the bathroom or getting a glass of water or stretching your legs. And you could also become in touch with some beliefs that can be perceived. So there is these 5 mental objects, and they are dancing in front of you, and you are the perceiving, you are awareness, impersonal awareness. The same awareness that is looking through all sentient beings through the universe. That's what we are. We're all that. one consciousness. No consciousnesses. That doesn't even exist in English, the word consciousnesses, right? But many people say my consciousness. And it's such a it's such a lie. There is not such a thing as my consciousness. There's consciousness. Other people say human consciousness, right? As if there is such a thing as the human consciousness. Every human has a different consciousness. It's just consciousness. Looking through a human body, looking through a dog's body, looking through a plant body. Any other question? The only obstacle to wake up is the amount of programming around, that we have created, around repetition by repeating the word I and me. That's why it's difficult. Because we have hammered that idea so many times in the mind that we have programmed ourselves through the use of language. That's why, although this is so simple, in fact, it is necessary many times the use of a teacher to wake up. So in my case, I had been looking, 30 more years into this, trying to wake up, and it was not happening, right? So one day I heard a teacher saying that he believed in the tradition that he was raised spiritually, that the transmission, the awakening is passed from teacher to student, right? And that I had not done it. So I decided to hire a teacher to help me. And when the intention was created, it didn't take long. An email came, and there was this teacher that was offering awakening sessions. And I called him, and we began having awakening sessions. And then it happened. So it's useful to have a teacher. And check the awakening protocol in the website, because you may need a teacher. Unfortunately, I needed it because of the tremendous conditioning around me and I. How many times we have hammered that thought. And I have a friend of mine that he was, one day after awakening, I had a conversation with him, and I had always noticed that he was kind of a happy fellow. And then at some point in our conversation, I asked him, but what do you think you are? What is your true self? And he said, awareness. Oh, how did you find that? And he said, since I was a child, it was always clear. Yeah. So he never bought into the program, right? Because the baby is pure awareness, right? It doesn't have any programming, and it's enjoying its true self. Then it comes baptism or whatever that initiates the individual into the false. So in that regard, we could say that baptism is a satanic ritual. Huh?
Probably.
Because, they give you a name and they convert you into a human being. You were the divine itself. And now you have a name, you go home and be a worm. Be a human. The next 30 days, 30 years or 40 or 50, or the rest of the incarnation. So talk about something destructive, right?
I think the birthing process is a satanic ritual.
Oh, the birthing process? Why do you think so?
Well, as I've gotten older, I've developed fear of, being trapped, being closed, claustrophobia, which I never in my life had. And a friend of mine, who is a hypnotherapist, she wanted to hypnotize me
Yeah.
to see where it came from.
Right.
So she hypnotized me, and I remembered the birthing process. And I remembered being pushed and squeezed and forced out of that narrow, tiny opening. And I remember, hearing screaming and feeling like, oh my God, I'm trapped. I can't get out. I'm trapped. I mean, it was horrible.
Claustrophobic. Right.
And I kept thinking, why did I do this? Why didn't I wait until the body was born and then enter it?
Mhm.
And that's
You know
probably,
it without me.
that's probably why both of my children were C-sections.
C-sections. Right. Yeah. So Diane is saying that for those online that she thinks that the birthing is very traumatizing, and it can also, as baptism, it can do a lot of damage, right? Because you're forced through this little canal to go out, and you get claustrophobia. Yeah. Yes.
If you've entered the body, you haven't entered the body, it's no problem.
Right. Yeah. Ideally, we could be born after, right? Enter the body after, but. Yeah, well, we get traumatized from the beginning, right? Let's make sure that you get traumatized from the beginning. You were lucky, in fact. In my case, I was pulled out with forceps. And then this trip that I went to Chile, my mother was sharing with me a piece of information that I had not heard. But it's that when they brought the baby to her, she couldn't believe how damaged it was his head, because they grab you by the head, right? So there was bleeding. It was thwarted, and then she said, "You, because she thinks that I am that body, you didn't walk for 2 years, and we were really worried." And then you didn't talk also for very long, and so all the milestones were delayed as a result of the initial trauma, right? So yeah, you are in this world. You get traumatized during birth, and then you are traumatized over and over and over through different experiences, and yeah, all that trauma pulls you away from your true nature. That's why in the embodiment process after awakening, you use releasing techniques, very effective releasing techniques and methods that deal with the traumas and the programming that resulted from the traumas, the rules that we created through the program, through the trauma, right? Because we create rules through the trauma. For example, you fall off a car, and then you create a rule: I will never ride in a car again, right? Or cars are dangerous, and every time you are in the car, you feel unsafe. So that's a rule that you created, and the rule needs to be uncovered and surrendered. So these techniques that you use in the embodiment process are called releasing techniques, and they are much more effective than psychotherapy or anything else, because you need to move fast. After awakening, you want ideally to move fast into liberation and do not waste much time. And finish the project, finish the process. So I have a friend of mine that he woke up, and he is telepathic, so he got a download with a technique, because he woke up and then he realized that there was so much programming in his mind-body organism that was less than ideal. So he prayed and he said, what do I do with all this material? And then he was given this technique telepathically. It's called the surrendering technique, and I have shared it with you here. And in 6 months, using the technique very intensely, his bliss became completely stable. So you want, during the embodiment process, to find techniques that are really, really efficient to do the job. And hammer the contents that are in there with the technique, releasing, so that you get free fast. No waste of time. You don't need to waste time in suffering, right?
It might be a little bit off the subject, but I read a book in regards to what Diane was saying about the birthing process.
Yes.
And it was very interesting because it said that women give birth lying down,
Yes.
but this was saying that that was for the benefit or the comfort of the doctor.
Ah, right.
Because really women,
Right.
the best actually is
Squatting
squatting or standing.
or standing.
For
Right,
instance.
right,
So,
right.
I found it very interesting, like,
Right.
and that we know instinctually, but,
Right.
speaking of trauma, like instinctually, like animals.
That you need to
But
squat,
there's been
right?
so much, that the authorities know that this is how,
Right, exactly.
and it's not true.
Not true.
So that's why there's so many midwives, and even they say even the midwife, you have to take that advice.
Right.
Listen really to your body as a woman. But I found it interesting, like if you are, whether you're more awake or more in touch just with yourself, that you can actually
Right.
know, without reading something necessarily, just know.
Right. So Monica is saying that she just read a book about the birthing process, and that women should deliver in the squatting position or standing up. And the position that is used now, laying down, is for the comfort of the doctors and creates probably a lot of problems, right? Because it's unnatural. So, yep, the same is valid for every time you go to the restroom for number 2. It's the squatting position cleans the colon completely, right? Because the descendant colon becomes vertical, and then the cleansing the evacuation is complete. Otherwise, with these Western devices, toilets, there is a very poor evacuation, and that increases the incidence of colon cancer, and it has been proven. So the Indians, you go to India today, that they inherited the custom from more advanced times, and they have toilets that are at the level of the floor. And it's an actual toilet, but it's embedded on the floor, everywhere. And then you need to squat. And then it's much healthier for the body.
We have those in Thailand.
In Thailand also?
Yeah,
Right.
when I was in Thailand, we were out in the country and had to go, use the toilet. There's a certain way you have to squat.
Yeah, of course.
And I kept squatting the wrong way, and I would, urinate on myself. And then finally I figured out I had to turn the opposite to the way that you would think
Right.
you had to turn.
Right.
And then when I did that, it was okay.
Right. Yeah, and it's Diane is saying that it takes some time to learn to do the right squatting.
Yes. Which direction?
But once you learn, it protects the health of the mind-body organism. You accumulate less toxins in the system, and so on. So any other question regarding meditation? We are moving into other subjects. I highly recommend that you try walking meditation. Open awareness in the beginning. Practice saying yes to what is, yes, 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 not resisting, and you will see that that will put you in a nice state anyway. And from there, it will be easier to begin to experience open awareness. I don't know why the brain is so restless in our Western world, but I suspect that there are chemical elements involved. That is not only a matter of type of brain, it's not only a matter of genetics, neither training. There are chemical elements involved. And then the brain in our Western civilization, and possibly also in the East, for what I saw, has become very restless. For example, there's a book that has been around for some years about MSG, and MSG is a substance that, monosodium glutamate, is a substance that increases the neurotransmitter glutamate in the brain, which is very excitatory. And since the introduction of MSG in the West after the Second World War to this moment, the quantity that the industry has been using in their food to make it more tasty has been duplicating, I think, every 5 years. So we are using monstrous amounts of MSG in our food. And it's very tricky to eliminate the MSG because, to begin with, the government is colluded with the industry. So they allow the industry to disguise the MSG under different labels. One is natural flavors, the other one is spices. And then with that, you read spices or you read natural flavors, and you don't think that that juice has MSG. Like you get one of these juices called Naked, right? And they have natural flavors there, and you don't know what they put there. It could be MSG, and I wouldn't be surprised that it is MSG. Restaurants, they can use whatever ingredients that have MSG, and then the MSG, because it's almost unavoidable in your diet unless you cook at home and you are very careful and you know what type of labels to avoid. MSG tends to agitate the brain. Yeah. And it's not the only substance that does this. There are many other substances that we have in the environment. One of them is lead. There's a significant higher amount than normal of lead in our environment. It was much worse when we had unleaded gasoline. And lead makes the brain very restless because lead leads to ADD. And in fact, I remember working in a clinic where the psychiatrist was testing the children for lead poisoning. And many of them were coming positive, meaning they had abnormal levels of lead in their brains, and then they were having ADD symptoms, meaning their brain was non-stop thinking, because that's what ADD is. ADD is a distraction of your attention. It's not that the child doesn't have attention. Attention is there, of course, awareness is there, but it's being distracted by multiple thoughts that are constantly moving around. So, and that's because the brain, is going in a non-stop loop, thinking. So to have a quiet brain today in our world is pretty difficult. And then that prevents you to rest as awareness. So when you cannot rest as open awareness, don't blame yourself, because it may have nothing to do with you. It may have nothing to do with you. It's just our karma as a civilization, and then you could call it that way, and then your brain may be having some chemicals that is altering the thinking process. So instead of practicing moving into open focus awareness, don't go straight there, just practicing accept what is, accept all the noise in the head, and then that will put you in a nice state anyway.
Caffeine is another one too.
Yeah, caffeine is a paradoxical substance because in some people it quiets the brain, and in some people it activates the brain. So if you have ADD symptoms, 100 milligrams of caffeine, which is about one shot espresso, is equivalent to 5 milligrams of Ritalin and will quiet the brain for a person that has ADD symptoms. So this is pretty common. In fact, I have suffered to some degree from ADD symptoms, and the coffee has been very helpful through the years, caffeine. But and ADD can be controlled with caffeine and some natural substances like tyrosine and
Magnesium.
yeah, magnesium, vitamin C, and so on. They all help. But the most fundamental is the amino acid L-tyrosine, and caffeine does a good job too at increasing dopamine. There is L-dopa also. You can find L-dopa. You can find L-dopa in capsules today. It comes from an herb called velvet bean, and then you get a substantial amount of L-dopa in just 100 milligrams of that herb. 100 or 500, I don't remember, but getting that herb is inexpensive, and the company now sells it. And L-dopa turns into dopamine in one step. Hi, Alan. Alan, okay, you're consciousnessing. No, there is consciousnessing only. Alan is not there. Any other question?
Recently, I came across little definitions of awareness that I thought were really cute. One was awareness in a stone is sleeping. Awareness in a plant is dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness in an animal is aware. Awareness in a human is aware of itself.
In an awakened human. Yeah, so Dianis found a piece of writing that talks about awareness, and then The first one is awareness is asleep in the stone, awakened in no, awareness is asleep in the stones, and then in the
Dreaming in
dreaming in the plants,
and awaken animals,
awaken in animals,
and awake to itself in humans.
and awaken to itself in human beings, and I would say awakened human beings, right?
Otherwise, we're like animals.
Otherwise, we become aware of our I-ness of or our separation, because there is such a that thing that is called self-consciousness that happens when you are a kid. That at some point you look at the mirror and you recognize yourself, right? Which, by the way, now they are finding out that is happening in quite a few animals, not just in people. So that thing is called self-awareness, with lower caps, the small s, right? So it's when you become confused and you think that that image or this thing is you, right? And then you wake up from that dream when you realize that awareness actually is impersonal and is looking through the mind-body organism. The mind-body organism is only an organ of sensory perception for awareness. And the me is not even there. It's a thought. And that's awakening, right? And also awareness begins to notice itself, thus becomes aware of itself.
I had an experience one time where I was out of the body. I looked into a mirror in my bathroom, and it dawned on me there was no reflection. I couldn't see myself in the mirror. And it kind of startled me, scared me, and I was pulled back to my body.
Right. That's a nice story. So Diane is saying that one day she was having an out-of-body experience, and she went to the mirror in her bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror and didn't see anything. So actually we have no face, right? And then when she got scared, and boom, she was back into the body. But yes, we are formless consciousness. Okay, any other question? Or we stop here? Okay, let's stop. So thank you to those online for participating and coming today.
Thank you, Jane.
And thank you guys for coming. It has been a pleasure. And I hope these things help you to succeed in meditation. I highly recommend that you begin to do little walks and experience open focus awareness. It's so easy to meditate walking, right? And then, if you can't, try with saying yes to what is, no non-resistance. And that works too. It's easier. Then you may not go into the same blissful state that is produced by resting as open awareness, but you will be okay. You will do okay. And from there, you can leap into open awareness. Bye. Take care.